discuss relevant construction topics in the industry today. Today, I've got Matt Ellis with me, President and COO of ACE Consulting. Matt, everything going all right today?
Going well, man.
Awesome. Well, today we're going to discuss what the importance is of setting up your quality control system prior to mobilization to the site. Now, this is something that has been a topic recently around our office, so we figured it'd be a good idea to discuss this. So, Matt, we've got a couple questions for you. First one being, what exactly does setting up the quality control system prior to mobilization to the site, what does that do for a project?
Well, I think the short answer is it helps to set your project up for success. If you talk to any owner, by and large, they're going to be after one of the big four, what we're calling safety, schedule, budget, and quality. Quality being one of the big four, and critical to get your quality control system set up. And the reasoning is starts and ends a lot with the submittals and submittal registers. You're going to have a ton of potential long lead items on most projects, critical submittals that may need to be put through and approved. Pay applications is a huge one. Getting your pay application in or an approved schedule of values. Obviously, once you get those pay apps in, get your schedule of values approved, you can actually start billing towards your job. But the critical one, again, is is the long lead items on that submittal register, identifying what those are, making sure that we're getting ahead of that. And by getting your quality control system set up, inherently you're helping to do that. We're gonna get our submittal register set up. If it's not already been provided, we're gonna get it set up. We're gonna identify those ones that potentially could be weeks or even months before they get to our site. We know how that could impact your project. Another big thing there is going to be RMS, if you're using RMS, or your project management software. Core jobs, NAFAC jobs, any kind of government job is going to use some version of an RMS or something that NAFAC uses, or a Procore or a project teams. Getting in there, getting that set up, getting that system set up where we're tracking communications and correspondence, RFIs, submittals, daily reports, all that kind of stuff is critically important to get that set up as well, so that when we roll out to the job site, we're ahead of the curve and getting out there and actually doing the work. So there's that one. Pre-mob RFIs, a good QC, when he's building their QC program, maybe identifying gaps in our scope or issues, conflicts on your drawings. So they're going to want to have any kind of pre-mobilization RFIs addressed and identified before we get out to the site. And again, a good QC wants to come and build this QC program before we ever step foot out on the job site. That way we're ahead of the eight ball instead of getting out there and trying to scramble and catch up once we get out on the site.
Gotcha. Okay. And so sometimes things happen on construction sites, and maybe a quality control manager, all the time. Maybe a quality control manager has to leave the site for an extended period of time.
Right.
Maybe an employee moves on to another opportunity, and a new quality control manager has to get approved by the government, has to come in. How important is it to have the system set up properly, the quality control system set up properly, to ensure that quality control manager is set up for success?
I would say it's of tremendous importance. The heaviest burden typically on a QC manager is going to be towards the start of that project, for a lot of the reasons that we just talked about: critical submittals and schedules, quality, environmental, safety, all those things, schedule of values. So having that set up prior to them getting out there is a pretty significant burden. Yeah. And so if for whatever reason that didn't happen, or wasn't properly set up, whatever it might be, the QC has enough to do once he gets out onto the job to ensure that the product is being put in place per the drawings and the specs. That's what we're really out there to do, is to do all our proper inspections, to do all our quality control checks. Inherently, paperwork is a big part of it, but you could potentially be looking at some extremely long hours or even project delays if you get out there and we're way behind on our submittal register. We don't have critical submittals identified, which may be tied to a long lead item. And now all of a sudden we're in a rush and we're in a jam to get that approved, to get that put forth, so that we can get this 20-week long lead item ordered and out to the site to keep ourselves from getting delayed. So it is really, really important. It takes a significant administrative burden off of the QC. That administrative burden should be very heavy prior to them ever getting mobilized out there. It should lessen and allow them more time to be in the field doing the actual quality control work that they're supposed to be doing. And, again, at the end of the day, it's all about making sure that you're avoiding delays, which are going to cost you money. If there are delays in the project, you might start having discussions about liquidated damages. You don't ever want to go there. You don't want to get into that point. Yeah. So it's good to get out in front of it, be ahead of it. If not, get a good QC, a good quality control manager in there that can get you caught up. But ideally, perfect world, get that heavy administrative burden done towards the beginning of the project, prior to mobilization, or right as we're just getting things set up, to avoid potential long-term conflicts.
Sure. And I know a lot of times on the projects that we have quality control managers on, we see where prior to mobilization to the site, our quality control manager isn't doing any of the work. So inherently, the PM's normally the one that's having to run down those submittals and run down things from the subs, and then also build the schedule and then upload the schedule into RMS. If it's not uploaded into RMS, then obviously our quality control manager is going to have to do that. But one thing that me and you had talked about, and then our project controls team is starting to roll out to our clients, is doing a pre-mobilization quality control setup a month prior to our quality control managers getting on site.
Correct.
So we're trying to get ahead of the issues that can occur whenever one of our quality control managers, somebody else's quality control managers, stepping into a project as it's ongoing. Because if we have our team set it up or somebody else sets it up prior to, then they've got documentation to show. And one thing I was going to ask John too is the submittal process. So I know all companies have a different submittal process to a certain degree on who's doing what. What's the importance on the very front end of ensuring to identify, here's the process that we're going to go through from the very beginning, instead of kind of doing it on the fly once everybody gets there?
Right. Well, establishing a process is never a bad thing, right? I mean, putting some guidance in place on the front end is critically important, especially on a job where you might have 10 subs.
Yeah.
Everyone may have their own way of doing it. It's important to identify your cadence. Hey, this is the way that I want the submittals to be presented to me. Some people like for an actual hard copy printout with highlights and references to paragraphs and spec sections, things like that. Some people want it digitally, do all this digitally. Some QC managers may want to take the submittal, review it, send it back to the supplier, the sub, and have them address there's 100 different ways that, to skin the cat. But the important thing is putting that process in place. Here's how I like to have it done so that we can ensure that everyone's on the same page and we're getting the same product every time, because there's a lot of them to review. And you spoke a little bit about the project manager. We talked about the administrative burden on a quality control. There's an equal administrative burden on a project manager. He's trying to get all his letters of intent or his subcontracts out. He's trying to maybe build that schedule or a million other things to try to get this project moving. Probably has another project or 2 or 5 under his belt as well that he's doing all the same kind of stuff on. So that administrative burden is heavy on him as well. That's why it's so important you have a good QC that can come in and say, hey, allow you to go close this job out so we can get started on this one. And that's a good thing for us. We, our project controls division, thankfully, we've got some seasoned project managers that have been there, done that on these federal jobs that can really help out with that administrative burden.
Sure. And we've seen it. We've seen that when our project controls team steps in at the beginning of the project prior to one of our staff getting on site, or even if we don't have a staff member on site, but one of our clients has a quality control manager that they're going to move from a project that's closing out onto another site, we see how much more fluid it is when we can get in there about a month to month and a half prior to 4 to 6 weeks and get in there and really smooth everything out. So for anybody watching, if you guys have any questions about that, or you need help potentially setting up your quality control system, or just want to look at potentially having one of our quality control managers come out there or do some sort of consultation, please give us a call. We're here to help. Matt, thank you for being with us today. So work with experts, work with ACE.